let's talk about imposter syndrome, something that all creatives I talk to go through at some point in their creative career or journey or whatever. Let's talk about it. Let's dispel the myths. Let's work through it. Let's feel like the experts, the magical humans that we are. What do you say? Okay. Here we are for happy hour. We're a day late because I'm still not feeling great. Don't have my test results back yet, but feeling a little better than yesterday, so hoping for the best. I have coffee today because it's National Coffee Day, and I love coffee, and I'm not drinking, so let me know what you're drinking. Even if you are watching this replay, comment as you watch it. Let me know what you're drinking. Any questions that you have, put them in the comments. I will go back and address all of them. So don't be shy. I know that I personally am kind of a lurker online at times. That's been my history. And engaging with other people really is wonderful. Like, it's great when we connect. So if you want to connect, I'm here. And don't worry about, even if you're watching this 3 months down the road. Okay, but today I want to talk about imposter syndrome. One thing that I want to say really quick is that there is a new episode of the Why Not podcast that's out today. It's about creative self-sabotage. There's going to be another part to it. So this was part 1, and it's about believing yourself, but in a way that doesn't serve you. So I talked about 3 limiting beliefs. I made a reel about the 3 main limiting beliefs that I see my clients and myself have gone through. A little winded. Okay. It's about those limiting beliefs, and so believing yourself when the thoughts that you're having, the beliefs that you have, are not serving you. So that is a really good episode to watch. It does fall into some of the same themes as imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome is also built on thoughts that don't serve you. And as I also said in the Why Not podcast episode, that was last week's or the week before, about how to get out of negative thoughts, and I was talking about thoughts that serve you, we really hold so tight to the truth, and there is, of course, value in the truth. I believe in science, and it's very important that the truth exists and that we know what it is. I'm not suggesting that we just, throw the truth away, but when we're doing thought work, when we're working on our mindset, finding the factual truth is not always the most useful thing, because the factual truth might not be the thing that's going to move us forward. We want to find the thoughts and the mindset and the energy that's going to move us forward towards what we want. And a lot of times, if we look at the facts, then we're really focusing on the past. And if we don't want to recreate the past, then we have to believe in something that we don't see yet. And so we're going to have to go beyond the truth of this specific moment and move forward. So that's kind of the precursor to everything, and certainly applies to imposter syndrome. So I did a poll on my stories to see kind of where you all are on where imposter syndrome kind of falls for you. And the 2 highest ones were, I don't feel like imposter syndrome shows up in feeling like no one cares about your art, and in feeling like you can't own an identity. So there's so many things that I want to say about imposter syndrome, and I might make this into a series because of that, because I don't want to be making you watch an hour-long live about imposter syndrome. I'd rather chunk it down a little bit. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a taste today, and then I'll probably expand on some of these in future happy hours moving forward. So if there's anything that you hear me say today that you're I really want to know more about that specifically, that really is a struggle for me, let me know, and I will go further into that. Okay, so this piece of not owning an identity, I really want to talk about that first, because that's something that I dealt with before as well when I started learning guitar. And I dealt with imposter syndrome in the sense of, I was I'm not, I've always been a singer, and I have no problem telling people that. I think I did have imposter syndrome of calling myself a musician. And I am going to go into this, don't worry, I'm going to dispel all of it. I struggled with calling myself a musician because I was I'm just a singer, as if that's not a form of music, singing. But that's what our brains do. Okay, so I struggled with that, and then I struggled with saying that I was a guitarist because I was like, well, I don't really know how to do anything. Like, I can, like, kind of play some chords, I can, like, sort of play a song, but, like, I'm not very good. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to both of those things of, like, whatever your art form is, like, even calling yourself a creative or an artist, depending on your medium, might be like, well, I don't know that I'm an artist. A lot of, like, I feel like so many of us think that you have to be making money from something in order to call yourself that, or you have to have some level of skill to call yourself something. So it's fine if that's what you want to do. Like, the first thing that I really want to say about owning the identity piece of your creativity is that it's like any other piece of identity where you don't owe anyone anything. You don't need to tell anybody if you don't want to. Like, there's no need for you to tell anybody that you're a musician, an artist, a guitarist, a painter, whatever. Like, there's no need to externally tell anybody should you not want to. Now, the problem that's likely happening is that you want to tell people for some reason, but what's not happening, I see a lot of the time, and even with myself in the past, was like, why do I want to tell people? Like, what is the purpose of telling people? And if I can identify that, there's likely less blocks in the way to me calling myself this thing than I think. Because if I'm just, like, in conversation with someone, like a friend, and they're like, oh, what instrument do you play? And I say, I play guitar. Like, why would I not say that? Like, what would be the reason not to? That's the thing that you want to think about. Like, what do they need to hear that I'm thinking I'm not that thing? So you don't need to tell anybody anything. Identify, like, why I want to tell someone. Maybe it's because you want to put a band together, or you want people to know that you have art for sale, or you just put out your EP and you want people to know that. And so it's important for you to identify with whatever you want to identify with so they know, like, this is a thing that I do. And then there's the other piece of, like, feeling like there's criteria for being able to call yourself something. And there's not. The only thing that I would really say in terms of, like, there needing to be criteria to call yourself something is if you know, like, needed a certification to call yourself something. Like, you're not just going to call yourself a doctor if you don't have a doctorate, right? Like, something like that, like, where you wouldn't want to, like, falsely identify yourself as something that needs some sort of certification or external board that tells you that this is okay for you to say that you are. You need some sort of experience to do it. Something very specific like that. Or you are, like, selling a service or something where you having this identity, it's important that people understand what your experience is with it. Like, you wouldn't want to say, I am like singing a vocal coach when you don't even know how to sing yourself. Like, that would be something that you would maybe identify your own identity piece and say, I'm learning how to sing and eventually I'd like to be a vocal coach. Like, identify, like, what your goals are with that. But barring those two things, you get to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. You get to just be a guitarist, an artist, a creative, a musician. What does the identity mean to you? It doesn't really matter what it means to anyone else. They're going to infer what they're going to infer about it anyway. Like, there was someone that I worked with one time who I told them I was a musician and that I played music and that I wrote my own songs. And I didn't elaborate much further than that. And this person was like, hey, will you teach me how to play guitar? And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I taught myself and I took some lessons, but, like, that's not something I feel I have the skill set to do in this moment. And I say that because, like, that person just inferred from the very little pieces that I told them of my identity what that meant to them. It doesn't matter that I knew that I'm not a guitar teacher, that I knew that that's not where my skill set was or where my passion was. Like, I don't have any interest in teaching people guitar. They just inferred that for themselves. So people are going to do that to the positive or negative no matter what. So you just have to let go of the fact that you're not going to be able to control their inference of what you say. You can only control your own identity piece. So what does the identity mean to you? That's what you really want to come to. And again, like, the only, like, imposter part of it is if you are lying. And I would just say, like, I own being a guitarist even when I was just learning, because I was learning guitar. I wasn't saying that I was, like, a guitarist in a band. I didn't add to that resume piece. I just said this is a part of my identity that I'm owning because it is a part of my identity that I'm owning for myself. And then if you want to elaborate, cool. There's a conversation to have. Wonderful. But you've not lied to anyone. You've not been an imposter. And this leads me into really the biggest piece of imposter syndrome, which is this same thing that I talk about all the time of owning the present moment. And I think so much of imposter syndrome is simply wanting to be somewhere else and not being there, and then resisting that fact, and then feeling like you can't be where you are because you're not where you want to be. And so, you know, even going back to this conversation of me not owning being a guitarist was coming from, like, I want to be better at guitar, and I don't feel like I can say that I'm a guitarist unless I'm better at guitar, instead of just owning, which is where I came to, like, the point when I started owning the identity of, like, yeah, but this is where I am, and me wanting to be somewhere else, like, knowing what my goals are just separate from the identity piece. Like, my goals are my goals, and then me owning my identity is my identity. My goals are just, like, a piece of where I'm going with my identity, like, how I'm utilizing that. So you don't need to feel like an imposter unless you are not being honest about who you are in this moment and where you're at in this moment. And the thing that I tell my clients is, what is so amazing about where you are right now? Like, so many of us in so many aspects of our life, not even just creativity, not even just like your goals with your art or imposter syndrome, like, we don't own where we are. And so we don't get to enjoy this moment. And then we get to the next spot. Not only do we not enjoy that, but we, like, look back on the thing that we didn't enjoy fondly. We're like, wow, I didn't really appreciate that when I was in it. You have to learn to appreciate the things while you're in them. And that's a thing, like, that I think about is looking back to when I didn't know much about guitar. Like, there's always those three phases. And of course they're, like, very nuanced, but there's the beginner phase, the intermediate phase, and the advanced phase. All of them have their own values, or, like, value to them. Like, each phase of growth is wonderful for its own reasons, and each phase of growth has its own struggles for its own reasons. And we think that we just always want to be in the advanced phase because for some reason our society thinks that that's just, like, the best thing that could ever happen. Being a beginner is also really great. You don't have all of these jaded ideas of what things are supposed to look like or sound like or be like. There's nothing wrong with that, but that is a struggle of being advanced. Is like, now you're diving deeper into things and you already have kind of built this foundation, which is wonderful, and you're not shaping the foundation anymore. And that's a fun place to be. It can be a fun place to be when you own it. Like, I had a lot more fun telling people I was a guitarist, like, owning that identity, when I was like, yeah, I'm learning. Like, this is where I'm at. I can play some chords. I can, like, kind of play some songs. And I'm, like, on my way to learning how to write my own music. Like, why discount that as a valid phase of growth and as a wonderful space of your life? Like, why is it bad to be a beginner? It's not. It's wonderful. You're learning something new. People want to support that. So it's okay to own that. Like, just own for yourself where you are right now. And where you are right now is perfect. And it's just this disconnect between where I am right now is wonderful. I know where I want to go. I know what my goals are. And I get to enjoy the journey along the way. And I can be as honest or as transparent about that process with other people as I feel like. Like, my identity is for me to decide how much and how little I share with other people. And then this piece of no one cares about my art, or, like, not wanting to share it because no one's going to care, or it kind of goes back to, like, it not being good enough or whatever. One, whenever you're thinking, like, it's not good enough, it needs to be better, whatever, again, this goes back to, like, that's just a goal to set. It doesn't mean that where you are isn't perfect and enough and great as it is. But okay, you've identified something you want to grow into. Wonderful. Just set that goal. What does that look like? Like, what does better mean? What does good enough mean? That's the next goal. Cool. It doesn't have to be a bad thing that you've identified that. It's just that's a goal and not a reason not to own and enjoy this current moment. And then the other thing of, so then other people aren't going to like it. The only issue, like, you have to identify what is the issue with other people not liking it. Now, of course, you're going to have an emotion if someone's like, your art sucks. Like, I've had people tell me that my singing is off key, or it's not good, or it's not the best, or, you know, I've had negative reviews, and it doesn't feel good. It's not like I'm like, please, more of these. But it doesn't change where I'm at. It doesn't change the current moment. It makes me feel something. And maybe if someone says something and it identifies something I didn't know before, then I know where to set my goals. Like, oh, I didn't even notice I was off key. Like, that's something I can work on. I don't know why you told me that, but thank you very much. It's okay to feel the feelings. And if you don't like how someone told you or whatever, like, that's its own thing as well. Like, that's a communication that needs to be addressed. But, like, avoiding those feelings, you just have to think about, like, so then you're not sharing because people might not like it. Why do you want to share in the first place? Like, what is the purpose of sharing? And I would imagine at least part of it is to share it with people who might enjoy it, right? Like, of course, those people will never see it if you only focus on the people that aren't going to like it or don't like it or have not liked it in the past. Like, you're just focusing on the wrong people. Sure, people probably won't like it. Like, there will be people who won't like it. Most of the time, they're not going to tell you. So that's great. But I think there's just so much in the creative community that's focused on, like, this toxic positivity of, like, no, like, everybody's going to like it. Like, everyone's going to love it. Like, it's so great. And I think there's certainly value in, like, pumping yourself up and, like, feeling good about your work. But I think the value is in you feeling good about your work and not needing other people to like it. I just think you're setting yourself up for feeling even worse when someone is like, everybody's gonna love it. And then if someone doesn't, like, there's so much disconnect at that point. It is, if you can find the way to be okay with people not liking it, then truly all that matters is that you like it. And then when other people like it, it's just the cherry on top, and that feels great. It doesn't even feel as good when people like something when you're worried they're not going to. It's like you're always going to be worried that the people that like it, you're like, you know, I don't think you mean that. So that doesn't even feel good. So it's okay if people don't like your art. It probably won't feel good if that's the case. That's valid and okay, and just doesn't have any place in you deciding whether or not you're sharing it. Why do you want to share it? Who is it for? Is it for you? Is it for other people? If it's for other people, why? What if it's okay that some people don't like it? What if it's okay that sometimes this is uncomfortable? That sometimes this doesn't feel good? That sometimes you question things? It's okay. It doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It doesn't mean you're an imposter. It doesn't mean your art doesn't matter or it's not good. You have to decide that it's good. That's where you want to focus. And that's where I focus with my client, is really coming back to, like, why am I doing this? What does this mean to me? What identity do I want to hold? How do I want to share that? And it's not because other people don't matter, but it's because external validation will never be what fuels you. Even when you think it is, like I said, like, it's not. Like, when someone externally validates you, the only reason it feels good, maybe not the only reason, but like a big reason it feels good is because it's reflecting back the thing that you want to believe in yourself. If someone gives you a compliment and you already don't believe it's good, it's going to be really hard to believe them. So we think we want external validation, but it really comes from ourselves first. You have to believe it in order for the compliment to really land with you. right? Like, there's times when I've played a bad set and someone has given me a compliment and I'm like, okay, I mean, thank you. I appreciate the compliment and the energy. But internally, I'm like, no, it wasn't. And then if someone insults me when I knew it was a good set, it's like, okay, I know it was good. I'm sorry you didn't like it. Like, that's a bummer. But it was a good set. Okay, I will expand on some of these topics further. Let me know which ones are landing for you. Let me know which ones you want me to talk about further. Where are your struggles with imposter syndrome? How is this coming up for you? This is what I work with my clients on. If you want to get rid of imposter syndrome and work through it, book a call with me because we can do this. I'm very good at this. This is something that I've worked on deeply with myself. I work on deeply with my clients. You don't have to feel like an imposter, and it's just a few little mindset shifts that'll really make a huge difference. So go to the link in my bio, book a call with me, and I will see you next week. Bye.